So we're going to start in your grammar books on page 67. So go ahead and turn to page 67. Start with grammar. Oh, good. They're here, Alexis and Kira. Awesome. I'm going to let them in. 67. Do the Learn It page first. Remember, this is the page you can always look back on when you're doing your homework, just to refresh your memory. Hi, Alexis and Kira. So I have a cold today, so sorry about my voice is all weird today, but anyway, all is well. We're going to forge ahead. We're starting with grammar on page 67. So you can go ahead and turn to page 67. And we've been talking a little bit about sentence openers in your grammar book lately. And by the way, we will eventually get into that with the writing part too. But today we're going to talk about the clausal opener. It's actually number 5, and there's 6 different openers altogether. So this is number 5. By the way, and I showed you this page before, but in the back of your book, there's a list of all the openers. If you forget what number goes with what opener, you can always look in the back of your book or the front of your book where it tells what lesson we talk about it. All right, so a clausal opener is a sentence that begins with an adverb clause. And the clausal opener begins with a www word. Remember that www.asia.b, that little acronym that helps us remember what the what those clausals are. So here are the examples. Excuse me. When, while, where, that's the www. And then Asia, remember, as, since, if, although, and because. So it must contain a subject and a verb. So here's the example. This is a clausal opener, but it's not a complete sentence. While the men relaxed. The word while is one of those adverbs that we use for a clausal opener. So, but it's not complete. There still needs to be more after that. It needs to include a main clause. So here's a better sentence right here. While the men relaxed, Robin was restless. Now remember, the brackets indicate the main clause. And then the parentheses indicate the clausal opener right here. So it will always have a comma and a main clause after it. So whenever you have an opener, it's always going to be at the beginning of the sentence, and then there's going to be a comma. So that's one of the comma rules, is after the clausal opener, before the main clause. And then to mark that, you're going to write a number 5 and a circle around it. That's going to label that as the number 5 clausal opener above the first word that starts the adverb clause. And remember, we can put AC, that stands for adverb clause right here. And then within the adverb clause, don't forget, you also have a subject and a verb. So since Robin was restless, comma, he looked for adventure. So there's another example of an adverb clause or a clausal opener, number 5, with a subject and a verb. By the way, there's also a subject and a verb in the main clause. Sorry for hacking you guys. I'm going to try not to hack through this whole thing, but anyway, I'm sure some of you have had this already. I hear a lot of people are sick right now. I got it from my daughter, and she got it from her work. And so it's like, good news, it's not COVID. So woohoo, it's just a nasty cold. So anyway, all right, moving on, comma. And we're going to talk about another comma rule here. It's used to separate items in a sentence. Week 8, you learned that a comma is used after, but not before, an adverb clause. Add a comma after an adverb clause, remove a comma before an adverb clause. Okay, so here's 2 ways this can go with, and this is where your comma rule comes in. So like we had above here, when the adverb clause comes first, while his men rested, Robin set out. That's when you do have the comma. But what if it's reversed? Robin left his men because he wanted adventure. So here's your adverb clause right here, because he wanted adventure. That comes after the main clause. If that's how it goes in the sentence, you don't need a comma. If the adverb clause comes first, comma. If the adverb clause comes after the main clause, you don't need a comma. Those are the two rules you need to know. And by the way, there's a little note here that you can look back on when you do your homework this week. AC, adverb clause, comma, main clause. And here it has main clause, no comma, adverb clause. All right, do you guys have any questions about that page? No? Let's turn to page 69. Excuse me. Oh boy, I need another cough drop. It's like I do okay if I don't talk, but obviously I have to talk. And so it makes it worse. Okay. Let's see. Abby, would you mind just reading that sentence to us, please? And then we'll talk about it.
The children of the merry men romped along the bank. They laughed and joked together.
Good. Okay. And our vocabulary is romped. That's not really a word we use very often. Anybody know what romped means? This is kind of dating myself. I mean, it is my birthday, but yeah, when I was a kid, there was a show on TV called Romper Room. If any of your parents are listening in, maybe they know what I'm talking about. Maybe they're too young, who knows? But romped means to play roughly and in a lively manner. So it was this weird show. You can look it up later if you want, but it's called Romper Room. It's a kids show. Anyway, so I think of like a dog or a puppy, you know, they romp around and they play. They're very playful. So that's what romped means. Okay, so these children are romping around. They romped along the bank. So that's actually a verb. Anyway, we can put a check by our vocabulary word. By the way, I'm using a blue marker today because my black one just decided to dry up on me. So kind of like my throat's happening right now. I got this thing anyway. All right. Articles, a and the. So you probably already are starting to mark those. Let's go ahead and mark the thes. There's quite a few of them here. Actually 3 to be exact. Nouns. Paisley, can you help us with the nouns? Where are the nouns in this sentence? There should be 3.
Children.
Good.
Men.
Men. Good.
Bank.
Yep, you got it. You sound like you have children romping around your house right now.
Well, one's an adult, but he acts like a kid.
I'm thinking that one that's squealing is probably a kid though, because that doesn't sound like an adult. That's cute. Those are happy sounds. I love it. All right, pronoun. Let's go to Allie. Do you remember what a pronoun is? That's like, pronoun is he, her, they, them. Do you see any pronouns in this sentence?
They after a bank.
Good. So we'll put a PR there for pronoun. Adjective, Alexis. How about that one? Can you help us find a word that describes a noun?
Mary.
Good. And there's just one. So you got it. That was easy. And then how about Kira? How about the adverb?
Together.
Good. The adverb together is telling who joked, right? Or who was joking with them. They joked together. So good. That's the adverb there. How about coordinating conjunction? Abby, do you remember what that one is?
And
Correct. Yep. It's like and, but, or yet. Prepositional phrases, and this is where you could peek in the back of your book if you needed help remembering what the prepositions are. But Bronx, do you know where the prepositional phrases are? There's two of them here.
The bank.
You're close. Along is actually a preposition, so it would be along the bank.
Okay.
That's the whole phrase. And then there's one more.
And joke together.
No, that's a coordinating conjunction. So you're looking for a preposition. Anybody, can you help Bronx or anybody else know? Paisley, which one is it?
Of the men or of the married men.
Yes, good. And I know you probably were going to figure it out, Bronx. I just thought I'd ask somebody for help. But so of is a preposition. So of the merry men is the phrase. Good job. And like I said, you can look in the back of your book for help on what those prepositions are. All right, now main clauses. Those are the ones that complete the whole thought, you know, that have a subject and verb pair. So the first main clause is right here. The children of the merry men romped along the bank. That's one main clause. And then the next main clause is the next part of the sentence. They laughed and joked together. And you're going to find that we actually need to make that into two sentences here. But those are the main clauses. And then the subject verb pairs in this first main clause, remember they each have one. The verb is romped here. And who was it that romped? You guys can just unmute and say it. Who romped around?
Children.
Good. Yep. Yep. And then here, this last part, they joked. So who was the subject in this sentence? Or who was it that joked?
They.
Good. Awesome. Good job, you guys. Now we got two different openers here. And right here we have this article, the, so there's no such thing as an article opener. So you just kind of ignore that word the, just to identify the opener. And then the next word you have is a subject. So this is actually a subject opener. I'm going to put a 1 and the word subject. Now, if you forget, your opener is check the back of your book. And the same here, we start with a they. By the way, we need to squeeze a period in here because it really should be two sentences here. And this is also a subject opener. I'm just going to squeeze that word subject in there. Okay, we got some capitals here to take care of. I'm running out of space. I'm just going to put my lines here under the T's for the beginning of the sentences. Now there is one. Yeah.
Wouldn't left be a verb too?
Let's see. Left. The children of the men
be a
romped along
verb.
the bank. They laughed and joked together. Did you say left?
Yeah. Left.
Oh, laughed. Oh, thank you. I thought you said left. I was like,
No.
see the word left there. You're right. I forgot that one. Thank you. That is a verb too. Good job. Thank you for catching that. And then we're looking at the comma. There's a comma here that does not belong. And it's this one. They laughed and joked together. So whenever you have a list, and there's just two things in your list, like they laughed and joked, you don't need a comma. But if they said laughed, joked, and ran away or whatever, I can't think of another verb, but if there were three of them, you would need commas there. So this one you're going to take out actually. And then the end marks, we have that one that we put in between the two sentences and then one at the very end. All right, so I'm just going to remind you again, when you do your next 3 pages for your homework, look back at the Learn It page and check the back of your book for help remembering openers. And then if you check the front of your book, if you forget what a prepositional phrase is, you can see what lesson it's taught in. Use your book. And then as usual, I will give you the answer key and then you can check after you've done your pages. All right, so your homework will be pages 70, 71, and 72. Okay, we're done with grammar. I'm hoping my voice is gonna hang in there. Oh boy, sorry guys. Done with the grammar, all right. We are going to move on from the Odysseus and the Cyclops. We're done with that. So you can either do it right now or later. Go ahead and move that to finished compositions because we're done with that story. We are now going to move on to a new story. Excuse me. In your binder, go ahead and get out page 55. The Hart and the Ox Stall. The Hart and the Ox Stall. Let me get this out too. By the way, since you're in your binder, go ahead and get out page 57, which is an LY adverb list, and 59. So you'll have 55, 57, and 59. Those 3 pages we're going to look at today. Okay. So now our story we did last time, that long story, was Odysseus and the Cyclops. It was a really long story. It was more than 3 paragraphs, and then we changed it to a 3-paragraph story. This we're going to do the opposite of. This story is only 1 paragraph, and we're going to change it into a 3-paragraph story. Okay, so we're going to work with this one. It's nice, it's short, and we're going to add some details to it to turn it into a 3-paragraph story to make it a little bit longer. By the way, this is an Aesop's fable. So it's kind of like the Miller and the Donkey story, where there's a moral to the story. There's something we can learn from it. And by the way, this was written 100 years ago. So some of the language here is stuff we're not used to seeing in a story. So the title, in fact, The Hart in the Ox Stall. So heart, obviously, that's a different word than what we know. H-E-A-R-T is what, is beating inside our chest, right? That's our heart. H-A-R-T is actually a male deer. Now, we know a male deer is also a buck, but another word for a male deer that's older, that's like 5 years or older, and they have more points on their antlers, those are called a hart, H-A-R-T. Okay, so that's what this story is about. And then ox stall, we know what an ox is. I haven't actually seen one in real life, but I know what an ox is. And they are often used, especially in, early 1800s and early 1900s even, for plowing fields before there were tractors. They are very strong, powerful animals that can carry a lot of things and can pull a plow. And the plural for ox is oxen. You probably know that, but so they're like a farm animal. So an ox stall is kind of like a barn. It's inside of a barn. It's like a room that they have inside the barn. Another word we're going to come across is truss. And I'll tell you, truss means a pile or a bundle. That's a word we don't really use anymore these days. But anyway, So I can save my throat. Do I have any volunteers to read this little fable to us? Any volunteers? How about, okay, Kira. Thank you.
A hart, hotly pursued by the hounds, fled for refuge into an ox stall, where then it buried itself in a truss of hay, leaving nothing to be seen but the tips of its horns. Soon after, the hunters came up and asked if anyone had seen the hart. The stable boys, who had been resting after their dinner, looked around but could see nothing, and the hunters went away. Shortly after, the master came in and, looking around, saw that something unusual had taken place. He pointed to the truss of hay and said, "What are those two curious things sticking out of the hay?" And when the stable boys came to look, they discovered the hart and soon made end of him, and thus learned that nothing escaped the master's eye.
Good. Thank you for reading that. And I forgot to tell you this one has kind of a sad ending because they did made an end of him. But you can imagine, basically they killed him. I guess they were hunters. So, and some people eat deer meat. So that's what they were doing. But anyway, aside from that sad ending, so a couple of things we can talk about here. Now these boys, and maybe I bet some of you can relate to this, whether you're a boy or a girl, doesn't matter. You're young. And let's say you had, okay, I'm going to create a scenario here. You had pizza for dinner last night and you knew that there were like 5 pieces left, like your family didn't finish it. And you knew your mom put it in the refrigerator. And the next day you're like, man, I really want that pizza for lunch. So you go to the fridge and you open the fridge and you're like, Mom, where's the pizza? Right? Has your mom ever said to you, use your hands to find it? Have you ever heard that line before? Well, that's what I used to say to my kids all the time. My kids are grown up now, but basically, if you open the fridge, obviously there's probably milk, there's probably butter in there and other things that belong in the fridge. Well, maybe the pizza got pushed behind the jug of milk and you can't see it right away. But if you move the milk with your hand, you would see the pizza. But instead of doing that, you say, Mom, where's the milk? I don't see them. Or where's the pizza? I don't see the pizza. So I think of that when I think of these stable boys, they're called. Basically, those are boys that worked in the barn, right? They probably cleaned the barn. They probably checked on the animals and things like that. And they look inside there and they don't see this giant deer. This is just like a cutaway so you know that he's inside there. But imagine that was covered and all you see are these horns sticking up. So, of course, the stable boys don't see it because they're not moving the hay. They're not paying attention to the details, but the master does. And the master sees that there's something different about this pile of hay. There's some horns sticking out or antlers, sticking out. Okay. So what do you think we could learn from this story? You guys think of a lesson, because this is a fable. This is the Aesop's fable. So there's something we can take away from this story. Anybody have any ideas what you could learn from this story? Any ideas? Maybe you can't get away with anything sometimes, you can't get away with stuff. Maybe you try to get away with not noticing something or ignoring something. And I always think of, when I think about the master, of course, I think about being a mom. Moms have, and you guys probably know this, they have like this, well, first of all, they have eyeballs in the back of their heads. I mean, obviously not literally, but they know what's going on behind them. And they have this like sixth sense. We have 5 senses, the 5 senses, but moms have an extra sense. And they know when somebody's up to something, or if they're not finishing their homework, or maybe they rushed through their math and made a bunch of mistakes. Moms pick up on that stuff really quick. So I think about the master, I think about that's kind of like a mom. But he was the one that discovered this hart, or this male deer, in this pile of hay. All right. So we can learn that You can't pull a fast one on the master or your mom. Can't pull a fast one on your employer if you're at a job and you try to do something and not do it to the best of your ability. They know. So that's something you can learn from this story. Okay. And then if you look at it from the deer's perspective, he's thinking he's hiding. Well, he can't hide, right? His plans were totally messed up. He was trying to camouflage himself, but he was too big, and then he became dinner, right? All right. One other word we didn't get to talk about yet was this word in the last sentence, learnt. Obviously, in today's language, we use learned with an ED. This is a way in, old, like 100 years ago, writings, sometimes they said learnt. It sounds weird, but it's basically the past tense of learn. All right. Now, let's get out a clean sheet of paper. And we're going to start working on a story sequence chart. I know you guys did this before, so it should be somewhat familiar to you on how to set this up. Clean piece of paper. You can use a pencil or a pen, whatever you prefer. Excuse me. I got to use my my blue pen because my black pen is dried up today. So go ahead and put your name on the top left. And today's date is November 29th, 2022. Almost Christmas time, man. We put up our tree actually already, so we're ahead of the game here. You guys did too, Bronx. It's pretty exciting. I love Christmas time. All right. And then we're going to call this one, the original title is The Heart, H-A-R-T, in the Ox Stall. And then under that, we'll put story sequence chart. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. I know it's a little lighter. Let's see if I can zoom in a little. Anybody having trouble seeing that? Are you okay? Good. Okay. So we're going to set up. Whoa, excuse me. I need another cough drop. Hold on just a second. Huh. We will survive. All right. You're going to draw a line down the middle of your paper like that. This is setting up the story sequence chart. We've done this before. Go ahead and put your Roman numeral 1. And then you're going to put your 1, 2, 3. Now I like to skip 2 lines here, so I'm just going to skip 2 lines and I'm going to do number 2. 1, 2, 3. Skip 2 lines. 3, 1, 2, 3. I know I did that kind of fast, so I'll let you catch up to that. Okay, and we did this, I gotta look back. This was for the, the miller, the son and his donkey. Remember we did it for that one. And then we also did it for the Odysseus and the Cyclops. So you guys should be pretty familiar with how to set up the story sequence chart. So I'm just gonna draw this in right above the Roman numerals. And I'm just going to fill this in because I know it's been a little while. So let's go ahead and put characters and setting. And we're going to answer the questions who and where and when. I'm going to just kind of go through this quickly, but you guys can just write while you're listening to me. This middle section is the problem. or the conflict. And we answer the question, what? And this is where we have a few things we ask, like want or need, think, say, do. And then I draw a little line to each one of these because we're asking that question, what, about each one of those things. And of course, at the end, it's the climax and resolution. And we're going to answer the question, how? How solved? Question mark. Okay. It's a basic sequence of any type of story, book, or movie. And we've been talking about this for a couple weeks, so you guys should know what I mean by all of that. So we're just going to jump right into filling out this chart. So we're going to do something a little bit different today. This part's going to be the same. We're just going to kind of follow the sequence of this story. But like I said, this story is only one paragraph, and we're going to change it into a 3-paragraph story. Excuse me. All right. So let's talk about the characters. Well, we know the main character, or one of the main characters, is that Hart. That's the male deer. So we're just going to put Hart here. And then what happens at the beginning? We have this Hart. And what happens at the beginning? Can somebody unmute and tell me with the Hart? He's being what?
Chased by hunters.
Good. Chased by, well, initially it says hounds. Those are dogs, right? So they're chased by hounds at first. And then it says pursued by fled for refuge into an ox stall where it buried itself in a truss of hay. Oh, and then came the hunters. You're right, there are hunters too. So I'm just going to put a plus sign here. He was chased by the hunters and the hounds. Okay. And then where does the Hart go when he's being chased? Where does he end up going?
The ox stall.
The ox stall, or we can just call it a barn. But yes, it's the same thing, an ox stall or a barn. And then he finds the hay. So I'm just put hay in here. And he hides in the hay, right? I'll put hides. So remember, the basic rule of this story sequence chart is your 3 key words. Now, obviously, weeks ago, we were choosing words from sentences, and now we're actually picking words from our brains from the story. So it's still going to be 3 words, and then you can use symbols and abbreviations. If anybody has trouble seeing this, let me know. I'll see if I can make it a little brighter. But all right, so we got that. And then along come the hunters. They're next on the scene, the hunters. And they're asking if anybody has seen the Hart, right? They come in, and I'm going to put see Hart question mark. So they come in and they're like, anybody seen the Hart? And then who comes into the scene after the hunters and they're looking for the Hart? Nobody's seen the Hart. Who comes in next? Who's the next set of characters that come in? Who comes in next? Soon after, the hunters come up and ask if anybody's seen the hart, and then who comes after that?
The stable boys.
Correct. Stable boys. And these are boys who take care of the stables. So they're workers, right? And they come in and they had been resting after their dinner. So they just finished dinner. I'm just put dinner here. And that's kind of setting up the scene. Okay, so this is the first part of the story. We've got these characters, a few different ones. We got the hart, we got the hounds, we got the hunters, and we've got the stable boys. And we know that there's a master, but he doesn't come on the scene until later, right? So this next part, we're going to focus on the problem. So we already know that it's starting to develop here in the beginning. The problem is they're looking for that hart and they cannot find that hart. So right here for this number 2, I'm going to put SB and I'm going to circle that. That's going to stand for stable boys, okay? They look into the ox stall or the stable or the barn, however you choose to call it. And they look around and they see nothing, right? So I'm going to put around and nothing. So they look around and they see nothing. And then after that, the hunters, what happens next with the hunters? The hunters come around and they end up leaving, right? I'm gonna put H right here. H with a circle around it is a symbol for hunters. They leave. And then who knows about the hounds, right? We know that there's dogs there, but we don't know what happened to them because all of a sudden it's not mentioned anymore. By the way, sometimes these Aesop fables have like holes in the story, like things that aren't fully explained. So here's an example. We find out the hounds are chasing the hart, but then what happens to the hounds after that? So what I'm going to do is put hounds question mark because we don't know what happened to them. All right, but where was the hart after all? The hart was doing what at the time inside the stable?
Hiding in hay.
Hiding in the hay. So we'll put hiding and hay. Good. Then comes in the master. And he's going into the barn. I'm going to call it barn here. So he goes into that barn. And now, obviously he sees, let's see, let me look here. He sees something. He pointed to the truss of hay and said, what are those two curious things sticking out of the hay? Okay, so comes to the barn and now, so this is the conflict and the problem here. They're looking for that hart and they don't see it until the master comes in to the barn and he sees, I'm going to put the master in with a circle around it. I'm going to draw a little eyeball here for our symbol. He sees odd tip antlers. And then what happens next? So that master sees the antlers sticking up And who does he call for? Or it says, when the stable boys came to look. So he's probably calling out to the stable boys, like, boys, get over here. I'm going to put that in here, boys. And I'm just going to say, come barn, like, boys, hello, you missed it. It's in here. I see something sticking up. And then, what do you think? Because this is where there's a hole in the story too. We don't really know exactly what happened in this next part. It says, what are those two curious things sticking out of the hay? And when the stable boys came to look, they discovered the hart had soon made an end of him. All right, so the stable boys come back, SB, and they discovered, I'll put discovered here. And then they made an end to him. So, what does that mean? I'm going to put killed. Basically, that's what that means. So they made an end to him. They made an end to the hart. All right. And then the last part here, how is it solved? Like, what is the lesson we can learn from this? I'm going to put nothing escapes master. Oops. S-T-E-R. Nothing escapes the master's eye. Sorry, that says master right there if you can't read that. Nothing escapes master. Okay. Now this is where we're going to do something different with this. We are going to elaborate on this story, because like I told you earlier, it's one paragraph. The original story is one paragraph, and we're going to make it into 3 paragraphs. We've already kind of added a little bit of information in our story sequence chart, but this is where I really want you to use your imagination and add, when you're rewriting the story this week, this is going to be your homework, to rewrite the story. You're going to elaborate on the story, and you get to choose how you want to elaborate. Let's say the heart. You want to elaborate. Go ahead and just circle that word heart at the beginning after Roman numeral 1 there. Let's say you want to add more details about the heart. Maybe you're going to say the size of it, or the color of it, or where it was running from, or what was going on in the background with this heart. Okay, that could be something you want to elaborate on. You could elaborate on the barn. Go ahead and circle barn. Maybe you want to describe the color of the barn, the size of the barn, what other animals are inside the barn. And maybe if it was loud in the barn, or maybe the roosters were in there making a bunch of noise, you can elaborate and add to this story. So that's what we're learning to do this week in this homework assignment. What if you wanted to talk about the stable boys? Circle that one. Maybe they're brothers. Maybe they're friends from school, or cousins, or maybe they've got some background information with them, like they came over on a train. I don't know why I just had this thought, but I was thinking of Chronicles of Narnia for some reason just now. I don't know, it popped into my head, because remember, it was wartime and they had to be sent to their uncle to stay away from where the war was happening, to keep them safe. I mean, you could totally make up something like that for the stable boys. Like, where did they come from? Where is their family? Are they originally in the same area, or did they come from another country? I mean, who knows? You What I'm trying to say is you can make up anything. Use your imagination. I think you're probably already starting to think of ways you can elaborate on this story. Maybe that part where they find the heart in the hay, maybe it's making noise, and maybe it's moving around or it has an itch or something. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of random things that you could add to this story. But then we also have to think about the master. Now, when you think of a master, I think of like an employer or somebody you work for, but it's somebody who's in charge, basically. And usually a master is older, has wisdom, has knowledge, is somebody who has more life that they've lived that they can offer. That's another thing you can do, is elaborate on who the master is and his background and how he became so wise and knowledgeable. Okay. Just checking my notes here. So your homework assignment is to rewrite this story called The Hart and the Ox Stall, but with elaboration. You guys understand what I'm asking you to do for this story? You're going to decide for yourself what part you want to elaborate on. Could be the characters, it could be the setting, it could be the background. But you're going to add your own made up imagination to this story. And you're going to turn it into a 3-paragraph story. I'm going to be looking for what you decide to elaborate on. You can pick. I'm leaving this like open-ended for you to decide what part of the story you're going to elaborate on. And then you're going to use your checklist. So let's check that out really quick. Your checklist you should have got out of your binder is page 59. I just finished my last cough drop, so we'll see if I can make it the last few minutes here. Your checklist, this is page 59 from your binder. I just want to review this with you really quick so you can remember how to use this, but you're going to go through each one of these little boxes and after you write your homework and make sure you included those things, obviously name and date. And if you're typing it, that's fine. You can use a Google Doc, but still make sure you put your name and date at the upper left-hand corner and make sure you double space. These are things you can check along as you go. You are going to create a new title for your story. And you're going to use the title rule, which is 1 to 3 keywords from the final sentence. You got to make sure that's in there. And that your story follows the sequence chart. I know you're going to be elaborating, so there's going to be things in your actual story that aren't in your chart, and that's okay because you're adding to that. And then each paragraph contains at least 4 sentences. You can make them 5 or 6 or however long you need to. Obviously, you're going to need more because you're going to be writing more information in there. And then this last box on the top here, you don't have to worry about that because you're just turning it in on Google Classroom. But here's under style. This is really important for you to pay attention to because you are going to add an ly adverb, a who, which clause, and a strong verb. Keep in mind these banned words that we've been talking about. There's more. We didn't have time to go through more today, but make sure you stay away from using say or said, see, saw, or think, thought. So basically, you're going to have to really use your brain. You can go to Google if it's okay with your parents. And I do this a lot, actually. I'll just type in a synonym for think. And then it'll pull up a little list. It's great because you can pick something from there that's different than the word think, or another word, a synonym for said, because you might have your characters talking in your story. But don't use the word said or say, that's banned now. You got to get more creative than that. So you got to say yelled or declared or proclaimed or some other way of, and by the way, these are also strong verbs that you'll be using in place of your banned words. So think outside the box for these. It's okay to look stuff up. If you have a thesaurus at home, you can look this up or online. And then down here, these are your typical mechanics: capitalization, end marks, punctuation, sentences, and then correct spelling. Make sure that you hand your paper, your 3 paragraphs, to your editor to help you double check these things. Okay, you check all this yourself and then you hand it to your editor at home and have them give you feedback on that. Okay, and then I had you take out, I had you take out another page, 57. This is a handy dandy LY list for you, which is going to come in really handy. And you need one of these in each paragraph. You can have more than that if you want, that's okay. But you only need to underline one of them per paragraph. But I like this. And if you think of others or you look up others, there's lines over here for you to add to that. And down here, some imposters. So basically, these are words that have ly, but are not actually adverbs. They're different. They're probably adjectives or some other word like ugly. That's an adjective, but it has a ly. All right. I think I'm going to end class early today because my voice is gone. So hopefully you understand what your homework assignment is: to rewrite 3 paragraphs and then your 3 pages in your grammar book. You guys have any questions about homework or anything?
I was gonna ask, can you elaborate on more than one thing? And,
Yes.
Add names.
Great question, Paisley. Yes, the answer to both of those questions is yes. You can elaborate on more than one thing and you can make up names too. That's perfect. That's a really good question. I like it. It'll be fun because you can kind of get crazy with it and have some fun with that. I think I saw Abby's hand for a second. Did you have a question too, Abby?
That was my question.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I know sometimes some of you guys really like creative writing. This is where you get to be pretty creative and do, kind of let your brain go a little bit. So yes, you can do that. Alexis, do you have a question?
Yeah, how are we supposed to know where the paragraphs are ending and starting?
Okay, good question. You're going to stick to your format here on your story sequence chart. So Roman numeral 1 is talking about characters and settings. So make sure your paragraph includes these things. And then when you're entering into the problem and conflict, that'll be where your next paragraph begins. Does that make sense, Alexis? So yeah, you're going to follow this format. So you got three paragraphs. So basically paragraph 1, character setting, paragraph 2, problems and conflict, and then the climax and the resolution. So you still follow the same format for your paragraphs. Good questions, you guys. It's awesome. I'm glad you're thinking about it. Anybody else? Allie, I know you didn't get to say much today. Do you have any questions about anything or you're good? Okay. Make sure you guys have your home teacher look at it, edit it, make sure that it makes sense, right? Oh, here's another key that you need to get into the habit of doing is reading it to yourself. Or if you have like a cat or a dog, you could read it to your cat or your dog or read it to your little brother or whoever. But if you say it out loud with your voice, it will help you catch the little mistakes, the little things that you might forget. So don't forget to do that and then give it to your editor for a final check. And then you'll submit it on Google Classroom, okay? Okay, if you're good, then that's it for today. Hopefully my voice will be back to normal next week, but we'll be regular time next week. And you guys have a great day. I'll see you next time.
Hope you have a good birthday.
Thank you.
Feel
Bye,
better.
happy birthday.